This is how to go from scared middle engineer to a highly paid senior in 2026. 6 years ago, I fell into a trap that most middle engineers are still in. I thought working hard and being productive would eventually get me to senior. It didn't. It just made me really good at the exact skills AI is making useless right now. So today we will cover how to become a technical expert that can handle complex issues others can't, how to design entire systems from scratch and get your team to trust you, how to become irreplaceable by driving business outcomes, and how to get paid what you're worth by bringing domain expertise. This is how our roadmap will look like. Over here, we have a line of your skill and levels you're going to hit along the way. So here, by the level 2, you will be able to interview and land senior level roles. And by the level 4, you will be chased by companies because you just provide so much value. But we start from level 0, the framework engineer. It's the level where the majority of junior middle engineers stop progressing. And the craziest part is that you don't even realize you're stuck. 4 years ago, I discovered myself being here by going to interviews for mid-level roles and not being able to answer anything. I really wasn't a software engineer. I was a framework coder with a very limited set of tasks. If you think that being productive on tasks and knowing your framework well will make you valuable to the company and will be rewarded in future, it's not. Unfortunately, in today's era, people on this level are very much replaceable, so our goal right now is to go from here to the level 2 designer so you can secure senior level position. Over the course of this video, we will be measuring your impact on this diagram, which represents what kind of value and how much of it you provide to the company over time. Where middle, that you can see right here, is completing coding tasks, and under it is lower level expertise that helps to solve painful problems, and over it is a higher level activities that senior engineer does. When your diagram starts looking like this, it means you're highly valuable and deserve to be paid a lot. But currently, the value you provide to a company kind of looks like this. It's a very thin line. What you do is you consistently complete coding tasks from detailed spec that is provided to you or design docs. You know frameworks and tools you use very well. With the current state of AI and overall market conditions right now, practically all people on this level are in awful position. Things you experience literally daily here are: first, fear of AI replacement because AI is actually better than you. No options for job switching because you have no ability to pass interviews, and a massive imposter syndrome because you are actually an imposter. These three things are building a massive wall between you and your goal. And from what I see, a lot of people never go through this wall. So I believe that there's only one thing that can get you there, and it's become curious. I had a colleague named Martin. I remember he joined us from Amazon and he immediately stood out. The front-end team had a couple of non-trivial issues hanging for weeks that nobody wanted to deal with because they were complex. And he just fixed them all in one day because he actually understood browsers, JavaScript, and all the weird things there on a deeper level than everybody else. That made him to stand out. And now he's a successful tech lead, by the way. So the first thing you need to do is to dig right beneath you. Here's what I mean. Now I do this often, but most impactful was the time when Python introduced async await and we just started writing it. But I realized that I had absolutely no idea about how it works, so I started really digging into it. ChatGPT wasn't a thing then, so I read articles about it and I did a lot of research. Turns out that the whole thing was built on generators and their ability to pause and store the execution of a frame. It's a function that can execute up to some particular point, for example, I/O operation or network request, and instead of waiting for it, it pauses and gives another generator a way to execute in the meantime. It was so fascinating for me that I built my own little version of an event loop on pure generators, and it was so cool that I even published my first blog about it. That also got me to dig into Python internals and understand what stack frames are and how they really work, and it's a big piece of knowledge that lives with me, and I use it every day when writing async code or doing code reviews. Also, it's quite funny, but the question about asynchronous programming was literally in almost all interviews I've gone through after that, and I felt very confident answering them. But most importantly, it got me curious. And now I get dopamine from understanding how stuff works. And here's why it's so important. The job of writing sloppy code is taken by AI, and it's very efficient in it. You cannot compete with it. But there's a massive shortage of engineers who can spot slop. When you see that everybody else is going into the direction of degrading their technical skills and vibe coding, often it's a great idea to go into opposite direction, improve them, and it will pay off. I believe that the fastest way for you to get to the next level is recreational programming. If you want to get good at Docker, let's say the best thing you can do is to rewrite it from scratch. There are awesome platforms and resources for that. The problem is that this option only works for hardcore programmers who work 8 hours per day on the job programming and then spend the entire evening on the same spot also coding. And if you can enjoy this kind of lifestyle, go have some fun. But let's be honest, you're probably not that kind of a guy. My preferred approach is a little framework that really helped me. I call it Ask Note Interview. Let's say you work on something at your job and suddenly feel like you don't even know what's going on under the hood of what you are typing. It will happen very often, by the way. Don't let it slide. Open ChatGPT and ask him to explain it to you, and you'll get a quick dopamine hit from becoming smarter. Note it somewhere in Notion, Obsidian, or whatever else you use. And then after some time, get back and ask it to do a quick little interview so that the knowledge sticks. Adopting this habit is the single best thing I did for my career. Now you are here on a bigger level. You feel more confident because you understand the internal workings of things that you've been using for years, like programming languages, OS, and databases. In practice, this will result in you being pulled into more complex problems that other engineers cannot fix. So on our value chart, you occasionally produce these spikes of value by spotting performance issues in PRs, more idiomatic ways to do stuff, fixing non-trivial concurrency bugs and stuff like that. But much more importantly, you're having fun. But suddenly your team lead drops a massive feature request on you that requires designing an actual solution before writing any code. And you feel useless again because it is a completely different skill set. You need to learn how to design a whole system that will comply with the requirements. And it's not just system design. There are tons of other sub-skills that go into here. For example, setting up a clean code pattern that will allow AI to perform much better in your code base. Going into the next level will also mean that you have to start being a very impactful member of the team, meaning spotting real issues in PRs, being active in architectural discussions, and so on. That's why this level is the biggest leap forward you have to do. Designing systems, writing good code, being a good team member requires you to become another engineer. And the secret trait you have to adopt to do it is knowledgeable. It's my hot take because studying programming is not cool anymore. Apparently, you should be just writing code all day. You can write personal projects all day long, but it won't teach you principles of building a system that's living under constraints of high load, big amount of data, uptime requirements, and other things that real business expects from its product. You can try to figure it all out by yourself via trial and error, but it will take a disproportionate amount of time and effort. Smart people have already gone through hell to form best practices that you can learn just by reading what they said. Don't ignore it. That's why it's called computer science. Science needs studying. So there are two specific things that pulled me up to be able to do that. First is reading books. Books are the best source of advanced information that is very hard to get anywhere else. Everything we know about how to build good software takes root in some book that was written by a very clever guy 20 years ago. Take Clean Code, for example. It is the most hated engineering book out there, but I think it's a must read for all engineers who want to grow. You cannot follow it byte for byte, but it provides the ability to develop your own taste and judgment for what is good and what is bad and why. And that's what makes you useful on your job. The guys who hate on a book are 20 years in the industry, they have read it themselves, and they already formed their taste. So they have a right to hate. You don't. First, form the opinion based on knowledge and experience, and then you can hate. And one book specifically that is required to read right here is Designing Data-Intensive Applications. Every technical decision you make, every PR, every design choice, every technology pick comes down to 3 questions. What happens when this fails? What happens at 100x the traffic? And will the next engineer be able to maintain this? Being able to answer this is a difference between middle and senior. Before reading it, my decisions were based mainly on what I'm familiar with, but when I finally read this book, it helped me build a strong foundation that allows me to secure senior level backend engineering offers and feel comfortable being responsible for complex designs. But actually, coding books can be quite useless if you read them as a novel. You will absolutely forget everything you read just after 1 week. So, if you want to build a strong senior level foundation, I've built a structured book-based curriculum for backend engineers. It's called Lab. Before every cycle, you take an assessment that exposes your actual knowledge gaps. Then you get reading maps so you know exactly what's worth going deep on and what to skim. And the weekly challenges are the things that actually build the muscle. Code reviews, system design critiques, architectural trade-offs, and you will literally be writing high-level designs for real-world problems that are based on knowledge from books. And by the way, the first book in the lab is the DIA for a reason. To join, click the first link in the description. The second thing you need to do is this. Take responsibility for writing design docs for small features and refactors. A senior is a person who can scope, design, and implement features end-to-end without any supervision. The problem is that as a middle engineer, you just don't have enough credit to design entire systems yet. But it doesn't mean you cannot put the skills into practice. Smaller scale features also need designing, and taking over the process of writing a clear design doc for most interesting ones and actually doing a good job will build your reputation and allow you to handle more high-level work in the future. When I was a middle engineer, I was gaining all this knowledge from books, but nobody knew that because I wasn't taking enough initiative to ask for some responsibility. Unfortunately, nerdy and shy devs are no longer the most valuable. So if you want to get to the next level, you have to take ownership and move to the higher level of impact you make on a team and company. I also have a video about how to write great design docs that bring clarity to the entire team, which is arguably even more important in the age of AI. So after this one, you can watch that. So this move will lead to a couple of outcomes. You will be more visible for stakeholders and management. One of the biggest lessons I learned on this path is this. How your value is perceived is more important for promotion than your actual value. As sad as it is, you have to play the game by its rules. Second, it will put you into discussions about architecture with clever people and allow learning from them and applying system design skills. Third, it will move you closer to the business side of things where you think about reasoning, requirements, implications of product development for the business. You will get credit for success and good decisions. But you'll also get blamed for failure, bugs, and bad design decisions, so you need to make sure you put all your efforts and knowledge into this. Congrats, it's our first milestone because now you can apply to senior level positions and try to interview. Technically, you're fully eligible. You're able to design systems from scratch and make sound architectural decisions that benefit your team. So on our value diagram, you make these bulky spikes in value up. This one is a design feature end-to-end. This one is a refactor that you planned and implemented. And we see the diagram filling, which means we are getting closer to becoming a highly paid senior engineer. But in your company, this may not be enough to just get a promotion plus raise immediately. So now we will see how to make them pay you what you deserve. Up to this point, you were working hard on your technical skills, and it genuinely was a massive upgrade. Going from middle to senior level is like accelerating from 10 to 100 miles per hour, and it feels super fast for both you and management. But what happens when you hit designer level is that your effort of getting better at writing code and designing systems starts being less noticeable. So it's like accelerating from 100 to 110. Even though the effort you put in might be even bigger, it's called a senior engineer plateau, and it's a real thing. Your technical ability goes up from junior to middle, skyrockets to senior, but then this happens. But it's not a dead end as some people like to think. What starts to shine is taking responsibility for business outcomes and becoming a better communicator. And it is the main difference between an underpaid and successful senior. You are not trying to be a CTO or a manager, but individual contributor can still be invested into the product and make it better. Here's the story about that. When I reflect on myself, this is super clear to me. I was working in a Swedish startup as a middle engineer. It was very clearly over-engineered and was going into the wrong direction with many technical decisions. I kind of knew that, but I just wasn't invested into the product at all. And when it finally failed, honestly, I didn't care at all. I wasn't any kind of valuable part of the company. The only thing I did was my direct responsibility, complete tasks. In a startup I work for now, for example, I'm spotting issues that could arise later just because my focus shifted to caring about the product. And ultimately, that's what every employer looks for. So here's the formula of what we are going for. The combination of technical skill that you already have. Communication is a skill that, in my experience, only like 10% of seniors have. When some of them start to talk in a meeting with stakeholders, I just want to disappear because it feels like they just came out of a cave. It doesn't look cool. You need to learn how people talk, communicate ideas clearly so that non-technical people can listen to you without a translator, or you will be never invited to any important meetings. The third thing is being invested into the product like a partner that cares how things he does affect the company. This means writing code, not testing it because that's why we have QA team, isn't working anymore. And this is how you get to the next level of the game. And it doesn't only work in startups. If your company is too big to be caring about the product, you should care about the system. Uptime, reliability, experience of other teams using your service. But to take it slow and simple, here are 3 specific things you can do. Identify potential crisis before it starts and report. Propose a solution and advocate for change. And I think this is one of my strengths. I remember once being in a one-to-one meeting with my manager, and he asked me something like, "Dennis, how do you always have an answer to everything?" Which is not the truth. But he was asking me some questions about what is possible and how easy it is to do in our product. And it's because I always try to think forward and backward when I'm working and look for things that could break because of some parameter changing, and also on potential future requests based on my understanding of the product and how prepared we are for them. Second thing you can do is improving processes in your engineering team by writing great design docs, documenting decisions, meaningful code reviews, setting up standards and patterns that make sense for the business. Give credit for good work to other team members. Third, and extremely important, take responsibility for mistakes and problems and act calmly while resolving them. And this is my problem. However, even doing all this, Your company may not have a senior spot for you at the moment, and it's when everything you did will pay off. Because job hopping is still the best way to get a significant pay increase and land the role you truly deserve. Always prioritize yourself and your future to being loyal to a specific workplace, because now you've built a solid foundation to be hunted in a market. If you find this valuable, please like this video. Level 3, the decision maker. You are now proactively working on new ideas, identifying potential problems in a product, and holding responsibility for business outcomes. You are still an individual contributor, but the level of importance for the company you work for is potentially higher than a lot of people above you. On the value diagram, you feel the high-level impact zone completely, which makes our story come to a logical end. And most importantly, you have the confidence needed to find and join a great company that treats you with respect and allows you to grow with it. It's time to grow to the next level that opens doors for ungodly salaries you see from time to time. And these numbers are not at all theoretical, even in startups and middle-sized companies, but there's a catch. When you see 300, 500k salaries, you may mistake them for full cash salaries, but in reality, more than 50% of that is often stock options. You can literally own a chunk of the company you didn't start just by working for it, and it's amazing. The next level is owner, and obviously it's extremely hard to get there. But here's a mindset shift that I saw working and I'm currently trying to do. Domain expertise dictates a lot in your future because engineers are now much more involved in business and solving actual business problems. Engineers who have experience in a company's domain are the most important. Every niche has their own points of complexity, specific best practices and rules about how its components should be built. I will give you an example from what I specifically know, because for 7 years I'm working in marketing tech. First, I worked for a big SEO company that optimized websites and built products around that, and now I'm working in an audio marketing startup. The tech stacks are different, and teams and processes are completely different, but most business requirements are similar, like high load, latency critical applications, and now I'm able to be useful in discussions not only from general technical side, but also applicable knowledge I have from our specific case. In particular, we had to build an ad server from scratch, and it was my first time, but this experience now is mine for the entire professional life. And if I need to work with this again and do it again, I will know what to watch out for and how it should work. So switch from stack-driven choice of companies to work for and think about domains of expertise you're building while working there, which then you can transfer into next companies, startups, and not only be a technical contributor, but bring a bag of experience about how to build successful products in your industry. So think about that more than tech stacks or new trends when looking for a company. If you take one lesson that will take you to the next level from this video, it's this. The closer you personally are to impact actual revenue of the business, the more you're going to get from it. So if this is where the company is getting their money from, in our metaphor, it's a sun. And here are some high-level people like CTOs, managers, leads, and here's Pluto. It's junior and middle engineers. It's so cold, they don't even feel the sun. Middles are getting absolutely no heat because they are so distant from the sun. No wonder the salaries for them are pretty low. But as a senior engineer, you now have the ability to impact real revenue with the experience you bring along with all the skills. So you can really start getting some warmth along with other important people in your company. So this is how you become curious, knowledgeable, invested, and impactful, and get a highly paid senior software engineering job in 2026. If you want, comment what level you're currently stuck on, and I personally will try to help you right there in comments. One of the main problems on this path is that writing clear design docs is extremely hard, and if you do it wrong, you can ruin your reputation. So if you want to write design docs that get approved and bring clarity to the team, watch this video next where I talk about how exactly to do it. Goodbye.